Good morning. Today I'm going to talk about how a simple CPU scheduler mechanism can improve the security in public clouds against cross-VM side channels with very negligible overhead and do this and still remain easily deployable for the cloud provider. All the infrastructure as service public clouds provide interface to the customer that enable them to launch and terminate virtual machine instances. All providers practice multi-tenancy, where there are different customers, VMs from different customers are packed into a single physical host. And this property enables them to achieve high resource utilization and turn low service cost. Unfortunately, multi-tenancy and openness of public clouds also enable malicious activity. Current hypervisors efficiently multiplex many VMs on a single multi-core machine. These virtual machines, which in turn have multiple vCPUs, float around different multi-cores, different cores, and often share the same physical core with other vCPUs. Hypervisors provide some form of isolation to enable this kind of sharing practical in a public cloud setting. Unfortunately, current hypervisors do not provide only logical isolation. And in the past, it has been shown that side channel attacks via this per core sharing could leak secret information. Similar attacks are also possible in system shared resources. And later in this session, Yaram will give you a talk on how one could do such an attack. But in this talk, we're going to focus on side channels that exploit per core sharing. Let's look at a simple example of a cache-based side channel. Here we assume that there are two VMs. One is an attacker shown in red, and the other is the victim shown in green. They're sharing the same physical host, and they're sharing the same instruction cache. And let's assume that the victim is trying to run the crypto function that's shown on the right. Here, there's a secret bit S, and the operation that are executed in this function is directly dependent on the bit value. So a prime and probe side channel starts with an attacker priming the instruction cache, where he accesses a set of memory locations that populate the whole of the instruction cache. And when he lets the victim run, and let's assume that the victim is running the function where the secret bit is 0, when he runs the operation A, he populates the set of memory locations that correspond to that operation. And when the attacker preempts again and probes the cache, this time running the same instructions, accessing same memory location, but this time measuring the time taken to access each cache set. This timing information could indirectly leak the bit in the secret and eventually leak the whole secret that is via the side channel. Although this is a very simplified version of the actual attack that was present in CCS 2012, this captures the main crux of the cross-VM side channel attack. Particularly, there are three requirements for success of such an attack. One is the attacker and the victim should share the same resource, here the instruction cache. And the attacker should have access to a high-resolution timer, and he should also be able to preempt the victim frequently and quickly. In the past, people have looked at various defense mechanisms, particularly the first two requirements, and have proposed defense mechanisms where, for example, they do not allow sharing by partitioning resources between tenants, or using a specialized hardware that obfuscates sharing, or a software-based partitioning mechanism. Although these defend against cross-VM side channels, they often result in low resource utilization or require a non-commodity hardware that's not available in the market yet, things like that. There are also another class of defense mechanisms that try to reduce the resolution of the timer or try to remove the timing channel altogether. Although such mechanisms may result in benign workloads not being able to have access to high-resolution timers, or may have a high overhead. And this is clear from the fact that, to the best of our knowledge, none of these defense mechanisms have been deployed in cloud providers that are available now. And in this talk, we're going to focus on how we can handle quick preemption and not allow quick preemptions for an attacker, and do this and still remain easily deployable for the cloud provider. Particularly, we introduced a new principle called soft isolation, where we allow sharing as opposed to hard isolation, but limit the frequency of potentially dangerous cross-VM interactions, which may leak secret information. We want such a mechanism to be able to improve the overall security against cross-VM side channels in public clouds and still be easy to deploy, and do all this with a very low overhead. In this work, we show how one could achieve all these properties with a very simple modification to the CPU's hypervisor CPU scheduler. In the rest of the talk, we'll look at why quick preemptions are important for an attacker, and why do schedulers allow them, and then look at a scheduler-based defense that provides soft isolation, and present evaluation results that evaluate security and performance of this defense mechanism. One essential requirement for the success of the attack, as we saw earlier, is the quick preemption. Now let's assume that the attacker was able to preempt between the start and the end of operation B. He would, and a cache footprint looks something like this, and he could observe this via the timing channel. But if the preemption interval is increased, the victim is now allowed to execute a lot more instructions. And this might result in adding noise to the shared state, which may make the side channel information a lot less useful. So the major takeaway from here is that the rate of preemption should be greater than the rate of the event that the attacker requires to extract the secret information. So to understand why such quick preemptions are allowed by the scheduler, let's take a step back and look at how schedulers work. Current state-of-the-art schedulers classify the workloads running inside a VM as batch or interactive. And batch workloads are throughput-oriented and benefit from longer time slices, whereas interactive VMs are latency-oriented and benefit from quicker wake-ups. One such mechanism that you guys may be familiar with is the boost priority mechanism in Xen, which is actually designed to help interactive VMs achieve quick preemptions. Although current schedulers do a good job in trying to address these complementary demands of these two workloads, they fail to realize the fact that there could be malicious VM which could abuse these properties of these two classes of VMs that the schedulers use. So particularly the prime and probe attacker abuses this boost priority mechanism by sending interrupts to itself and waking up very frequently. And such a mechanism was actually used by Zhang et al. In CCS 2012 attack, where they were able to achieve preemption interval as low as 10 microseconds. So what could one do against such quick preemptions, and how avoid those dangerous cross-VM preemptions? One way to limit those dangerous cross-VM preemptions is to provide soft isolation by rate limiting preemptions. So let me explain what that means. In the current schedulers, when there's a pending event, the interactive VM is scheduled right away, and it preempts the currently running any VM. What if we could modify the scheduler such that we allow the victim to run for a minimum guaranteed runtime before switching to an interactive VM? Such a mechanism would directly increase the minimum runtime or the preemption interval that any victim would perceive when in the presence of an attacker. Although this is one way to rate limit preemptions, we did try a lot of different other alternatives, like trying to separate out batch and interactive workloads on different cores such that they don't interact with each other, or trying to spread the preemption of an interactive workload across multiple different VMs on different cores. It turned out that this simple minimum runtime guarantee mechanism was enough to provide really good security and performance guarantees. And it turns out that Xen and Linux KVM already has such a simple mechanism already in them, and it was actually introduced as a way to improve performance of batch workloads by reducing the number of context switches. But in this work, we're going to look at how one could use this MRT mechanism to achieve soft isolation. So particularly, we want to answer two questions in this work. One is, can this MRT mechanism different against realistic prime and probe attacks? And what should the value of MRT be to defend against most of side channel attacks? And the next question is, although it's best to increase the MRT value to a higher, very high value, it may affect the interactive workload, benign interactive workloads performance. So we want to find a middle ground between both security and performance guarantees. So let's first look at the security evaluation of this MRT mechanism. We set up a Zen test bed, which is configured very similar to how public clouds, how we know public clouds configure their hypervisor, like Amazon EC2. And we configure two VMs to run on a single core, where one of them is an attacker, which is same as the CCS 2012 attacker. And we experimented with multiple different victims that we think are good candidates. So first, we looked at a very simple victim which accesses 2/4 of the cache alternatively, such that this sends us a very clear covert channel signal via this shared instruction cache. So these heat maps show the prime and probe timing profile, where x-axis is the cache set number, and y-axis is the iCache timing sample between two preemptions. And darker the color means how longer it took for the attacker to access these cache sets. So what we see here is that under 0 MRT, which is the attack setting in CCS 2012 attack, the simple victims side channel, the covert channel signal is directly visible for the attacker via this timing profile. And when we increase the MRT value to a modest of 1 millisecond, what we see is that we no longer see this alternating pattern, which is essential for the side channel information. And this is a very simple way to experimentally show that such simple covert channels are not possible with 1 millisecond MRT value. Although this, we also wanted to look at a very realistic victim. We looked at the same victim that was against which the attack was demonstrated, which is the GNU-TLS implementation of Elgamal, which uses a modular exponentiation algorithm that's shown on the right here. Here, the exponent is the secret, and as you can see, the control flow within this iteration actually indirectly leaks the bits in the exponent based on whether it's 0 or 1. And an important observation from the past work is that for a successful side channel attack against this victim, the attacker should be able to observe do multiple preemptions within a single iteration. So what we measured is that exactly this number of preemptions that could be achieved in a single number of iterations that happen between two preemptions, prime and probe preemptions. And in the attack setting, what we saw is that the attacker was able to preempt each iteration almost 10 times. And this was essential for noise reduction in their work. And what we see is that even for a modest increase in MRT value, the number of iterations that happen between two preemptions are a lot higher, and we believe that this is sufficient to make existing and future attacks significantly harder. We also have multiple other victims that we experimented with in the paper. Next, let's look at the performance characteristics of MRT value and how high can we set this MRT value. As higher MRT value means better security, as we saw earlier. In this experiment setting, what we did is we configured 3 VMs to run each with 2 vCPUs and ran it on 4-core machine. And one of the VMs were used to run the measured workload, where we used realistic interactive and batch workloads like Memcached, Graph 500, etc. And in the other vCPUs, we ran competing workloads, which are micro benchmarks that are the worst case competing workloads, like highly crash thrashing, interactive, and batch mix of workloads. Um, so the result, what we did is we set the MRT value to 5 milliseconds, which is large enough, and we compared it with the performance of 0 MRT case, which is our baseline. So the first three set of measurements show that show the 95th percentile latency, that is the tail latency of client requests. And what we see is that we observe a overhead of less than 7%, even in the tail latency, with a very high MRT value of 5 milliseconds. It's important to note that we almost observed 0% overhead on median and average latencies. And for batch workloads, we observed improvement for some of them as they were expected, and yeah, that's this is one of the results that we will be showing here. There are a lot more results in the paper. There's one more additional mechanism that we use is per code state cleansing, where we identify the fact that the MRT mechanism do not help interactive VMs in any way, and we require some other mechanism to deal with those. So what we do is we do smart selective state cleansing. Although I won't have enough time to go over this in detail, I would encourage you guys to look into the paper or catch me offline. There are also detailed performance analysis, a lot more than what you saw here, about 20 plus graphs in the paper. I encourage you to go and look into that as well. This all is to say that it's really cheap and easy to deploy even in a realistic setting for the cloud provider. So to conclude, we show that a 5 millisecond MRT with selective state cleansing is a good, easy to deploy mechanism with very low overhead and make existing attacks significantly harder to do in this setting. And we introduce a new scheduler mechanism, scheduler principle, where we allow sharing and limit dangerous cross-VM interactions. We have the micro benchmarks, which we use to evaluate performance, available online. And we are actually working with, in dialogue with Amazon, for example, check if they could turn this on as a configuration option in their public cloud system. That's it. I'm happy to take questions now.
Any questions? We have a microphone here and over there as well. I don't see any microphone over there. So here, you can line up and state your name and affiliation and ask questions. So while you're thinking about questions, I have two prepared ones. Okay, so the first one, I have my cheat sheet as well. Okay, so first question is, it's a really great work, very cute idea, and seems effective. But can this solution be applicable to other VM besides Xen?
As a configuration option in Linux as well.
Okay.
And yeah, it's not particularly, this mechanism is not particularly tied to any kind of scheduler. But although it requires you, one should make sure that to rerun those performance analysis on the new system, as there is an interaction between how current multi-core schedulers work, as well as to make sure that there is low overhead. You still need to rerun analysis on these new schedulers, but it's still already available, and it's not limited to Xen.
Okay, thank you. And still no one is stepping up. Okay, so second question. So how is your solution compared with kind of other way of getting rid of this side channel attack possibility, like randomize allocation of VMs to hardware platforms like that?
Yeah, that is, I think that's still applicable in terms of like trying to avoid the pre phase of the attack. For example, trying to get a co-resident VM. If you're not able to do that deterministically, I think that is good enough defense as well.
Okay.
But that's orthogonal to what you're looking at. We assume that it is possible in current setting that you could easily get a coerced VM. And in that case, what you could do is something like this is what we are presenting here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's thank the speaker again.